Miss Mattie Merrywinkle, Chapter 17, On the Red Sofa. It was ironic, really. Gerald had been violently opposed to the possibility of Mattie's appearing on the television breakfast show when she'd originally floated the idea past him, but it was because of him that she did eventually make it, in the early days in January. To be specific, it was the runaway success of the children's book The Cat's Whiskers that was responsible. No one could have foreseen that the public would fall in love with a mangy marmalade cat with ideas above his station the way they did. So much so that the Christmas displays in the shops had been awash with his image. The feline character in the story was called Aloysius. Like Gerald, he had arrived in the family household already named and tagged. But the little girl in the story couldn't get her tongue round that in the beginning, so she called him Aloysius. The name stuck and eventually became abbreviated to just Whiskers. So that was the name on all the merchandise. You could drink your tea from Whiskers mugs, carried on a Whiskers tray, to be placed on a Whiskers tablecloth before washing them and drying them on a Whiskers tea towel. Mattie found it deeply comforting to be bombarded by these images of her beautiful boy and felt indebted to Marigold for having made it all happen. The first few months had been difficult. Who would have known she would miss his moody, moth-eaten marmalade presents so much? But she did. Winnie had been a good friend as always, and Marigold had made a few trips north to help cheer Mattie up. On her third such trip, she had suggested that Mattie might like to come down to Kent for Christmas. It will be strange for both of us. You're still grieving for Gerald, and I'm still mourning the loss of my mum and dad, who always used to come for Christmas lunch. But maybe we could find comfort in each other's company. To her surprise, Mattie found herself saying that she would love to come. And now she was so glad she had. Apart from anything else, she was proud of herself for having organised her own train ticket and booked a car to take her to the station. Marigold had offered to come and get her, but Mattie had asserted her independence and just got on with it. To be honest, she was glad of the distraction of having something to plan for, as her work with the volunteer force had come to an end, and she knew that the part-time job in the chemist shop wouldn't be available anymore. Mr. Barlow had rung to say that he and Betty, who'd made a full recovery, would be able to cope with the reduced volume in business between them. Besides that, she knew for a fact that there were fit young people out there with a list of qualifications as long as your arm, and they couldn't get any kind of job, so what chance did she stand? Mattie was also pleased with herself for having used the bits of wool left over from her Fair Isle cardigan to make a jaunty beret for Marigold's Christmas present. And this time it was a jaunty beret, as she took great care to get the knitting needle sizes right. Marigold's present to Mattie was a framed collection of 4 of the original illustrations she had done of Gerald, so that Mattie could continue to talk to him and seek his advice whenever she felt the need. They'd had the conversation about Mattie coming to live with Marigold permanently, something Marigold was serious about, as she was keen to look after Mattie. Furthermore, she had noticed the cider drinkers and the fast food wrappers stuffed in the hedge, and the overall run-down feel to the estate where Mattie lived. I'm not criticising or judging, Mattie. I know it's your home, but I can't help worrying about you living in those conditions. The best thing to come out of my marriage was that I was able to afford this house with my divorce settlement. And the sale of Mum and Dad's house has just gone through, so I could afford to buy a small place for you nearby if you didn't want to live under the same roof. It would just mean that I would be able to keep a friendly eye on you. I know, love, and I know you've got my best interests at heart, but I still feel that Manchester is where I belong. It's been lovely coming to stay, and I'm sure I'll be doing it again now that I've proved I can. But I can't imagine living anywhere else but Balmoral Close right now. 2 days before Mattie was due to return home, the phone call came to invite Marigold to appear on the television breakfast show, alongside Kate, the author, to talk about the book. Because things hadn't quite returned to normal yet, each of them would be interviewed in their own home via Zoom, and their faces would appear on screens next to whoever was hosting the show that morning. Marigold decided that she would do her interview sitting on her sofa in her studio, surrounded by her work. It just happened to be bright red. She insisted that Mattie sit beside her, and Mattie agreed, as long as she could be off camera so that she could see what was going on but didn't appear on the television. Having been very keen on the idea of being a poster girl for the NHS all those months ago, she was now feeling suddenly shy. To Mattie's delight, it was that nice young man, Dan somebody or other, who was going to be conducting the interview. It almost made up for the fact that they'd had to get up at the crack of dawn and make themselves respectable at a time when Mattie would normally still be lost in the land of Nod. Kate was interviewed first, and then Dan turned his attention to Marigold. Just as he was about to wrap up the interview, he gave an extra wide smile and said, "And I believe you have someone else there with you, Marigold. Is that right?" Mattie shook her head vigorously, but Marigold ignored her and adjusted her laptop so that Mattie was now in the picture. "I do indeed. There's someone here who's played a very large part in this story. In fact, I think it's true to say that without her, it would never have come about. And this is the lady who owned the cat that provided you with your inspiration for whiskers, is that correct?" "She is, but she's also so much more than that." Marigold reached out across the sofa and clasped Mattie's hand. "This is my mum. This is Mattie Merrywinkle." Whatever was said after that was a blur. Those first 4 words just kept on spinning round in Mattie's head like Catherine wheels on a dark November night. She thought her heart would burst with happiness. This is my mum. The end. Thank you for listening to Mattie's story. By the way, the original competition entry, entitled Mattie Merrywinkle, was shortlisted as runner-up. And if you'd like to hear a reading of the winning entry and a selection of many of the others, please visit the website at https://journalistscharity.org.uk/Dickens/. I've also put the link underneath so you can actually just click on it. And if you've enjoyed listening to Mattie's story and would like to express your appreciation, you can use the same website to make a small donation to the charity that led to her creation, which will be very gratefully received. Thank you.